Right, for the outer petticoat, the one that's going to be scalloped, we're going to make a half circle skirt, sorry, full circle skirt. So we're going to take 2 half circles like we've done previously in our other tutorials, and these will be sewn down the side seams on both sides. Now then, the hole that you're going to create here has just got to be wide enough for you to comfortably get over your head and down to your waist, because we're going to elasticate this one and it will be on a waistband. So if you're not sure of what radius to cut this to, start with something small, see if you can fit into that. If you need to take it a little bit wider, then take off another inch and cut it again. See if you can get into that measurement, and just do it slowly and carefully until you've reached a point where you can get it over your head and will fit snugly on your waist.
Okay, next I've cut a petticoat, the same as the outer one in this beige one. I used a lightweight crepe. Just come to the bottom here. It's been cut in exactly the same way as this one, and the side seams done up. And they've called this a crepe lining. Then you want to start pinning them together, as you can just see here, just along the top edge. You need to cut out a waistband. This one I've done measures 36 inches long because it's going to be elasticated. As roughly about 3 inches wide. Just get your waistband and fold it in half and sew a side seam. Next, start pinning your waistband to the edge of your skirt, as you can see here in the video. I've chosen to take the side seam of the waistband and match it up with a side seam on the skirt. This was just my choice. You don't have to do this. You can start that seam on your waistband at the back. Next, sew the waistband down.
Right, now we're going to fold the waistband and attach it to the inside of the skirt. Give yourself a seam and then fold that again, and where you can see your stitching line there, just pin that down. And just there as well, and then do that all the way around. Right, when you've turned it over and pinned it down, hand sew the edge to the petticoat on the inside.
Next, you need some elastic. This elastic I have is 1 inch wide. Next, we're going to try something new. Instead of just joining 2 ends of elastic together after we've threaded it through, we've cut out a little piece of fabric here, a couple of inches long, roughly about the width of your waist elastic, and I've just sewn one edge on here and I've done like a box effect.
Then take your elastic and put a safety pin on the end and thread this all the way through the waistband, making sure that your elastic stays straight. Then when you get back to the open end that you left open, what we're going to do now is take the piece of material that we'd sewn to one side of the elastic, and now we're going to join that with the other side of the elastic, like so, so that the elastic meets up.
I have now anchored both sides of the elastic, to the piece of fabric. Now you want to pop the elastic into the hole, making sure it's flat, and then you want to continue to seal that over like you did the rest of the band here. Just want to close that flat. I've now hand sewn my end of my band down on the inside and close the elastic in the casing.
So what we're going to do now is, so that the elastic doesn't twist at all, especially when you're going to wash your skirt, is we're just going to put some pins at the halfway points, like so, and then another 2 at the quarterway point, going through the elastic. And the idea is that this will go under the sewing machine now, and I'm going to sew a line halfway up. So what you have to do is take one pin mark and another pin mark, and as it's under your sewing machine, you have to physically pull that tight so that your waistband is straight, and then you'll be able to run a piece of sewing up as far as the pin, and then you'll go to the next pin and do exactly the same, keeping it tight in the sewing machine, and we'll show you later what it looks like. So this is what is going to happen now, when the elastic waist will now stretch with your skirt.
Next you want to hem up the white petticoat. We've just overlocked ours on the machine, but if you want to do a proper hem, because it's on quite a severe curve, you might want to stitch it in first or overlock it. For those of you who've seen my Aurora skirt tutorial, I explain on there a bit better how to solve the problem of turning on a sharp curve and hemming up. Right, next we need to try and give the skirt a bit more volume at the bottom and to have this very slight A-line shape, because at the moment there's so much weight in my outer skirt that it is just hanging totally straight and there's hardly any shape. Now, you can do this 2 ways. You can buy a cage or hoop if you want, but then you have the issue with the fact that in the film there is no hoop cage under it. There's just one petticoat, which alone would not give that shape in real life, as I've just discovered. So what I'm going to do is add some veiling, not stiff net, veiling tool to my white petticoat, just to try and give it a little bit of volume, a bit of lift at the bottom. So now try and push the weight of the skirt out so that it just gives it this nice shape along the bottom and flares it out just a little bit. So don't know if you guys can see here, put it against something dark, there we go. It's a very soft veiling tool. This is sort of the idea I'm going to do with it, to gather it up. Just remember, when you gather fabric of any kind, you need 3 times as much to start with, because it eats fabric, and it depends how tight you want your gathers to be. My strips are 30 centimetres wide, which is what I've chosen to go with. So the width from there to there is 30 centimetres. Now, as you can see here, I've cut out lots and lots of long strips. These are about 2 meters long each, because I only bought a couple of meters of tulle and it was actually 3 meters wide. I thought I'll go with that, and if I need some more I'll just have to get some more. And this was ivory, this is not white, because I thought white would be a bit too bright. So now what I'm going to do is, where I've got one end of the tulle, I'm just going to start connecting all the other ends to it and sew the strips together to make a really, really, really long strip. And as you remember earlier, my petticoat was nearly 7 meters around the bottom of the hem, and this has all got to be gathered, so I'm looking at something like 20 plus meters to start with. And then by the time it's gathered, it will be half that or even less than half of that. Okay, I have all my tulle here that I've sewn together in strips. There's the first join line there. Altogether I had 14 strips of net. Each strip, that's from each seam to seam to seam, is 2 meters 20 centimeters long. That's after they were sewn together, so exclude the seam. So that's 14 strips I've used, all 2 meters 20 centimeters long, sorry. So altogether I've ended up with 30 meters and 80 centimeters, so 30.8. Along the top of each strip, because it's not a good idea to run a gathering stitch on 30 meters of tulle all the way from beginning to end. So to start with, do a normal sew forwards and backwards. Because it's net, I've gone forwards and backwards quite a few times to hold it in place, so a bit of extra security there to start with. Then ran my gathering stitch along the first couple of meters to the end of the first join line here where the seam is. I've then run it off the end, leaving some really long tails because you'll need to pull it in a moment to gather it. I then start again on the next bit and again do forwards and backwards on your machine to anchor it in place. Then I forgot to say, you use, on our machine, it was number 4, which is a long stitch, which you need to gather. So make sure your stitches are quite long. And then again do that all the way along to the next seam, then stop, leave some tails for pulling, and then start again on the next one, and so on and so on. Okay, take one of the tails, preferably the top one, and then what you want to do is start pulling. As you can see, that's gathering up your net. You just want to keep moving them along. Don't be too vicious with it, because otherwise you will snap your thread. So you want to be very careful. Little bit time consuming, but you just want to keep gathering and gathering as much as you can. And you'll just keep moving those gathers right the way down to the very end of your first section. Next you want to take the ivory petticoat, and from the bottom edge you want to mark in 30 centimetres, and I've just put some pen marks to help me when I come to pin my net in. 30 centimetres being the width of your tulle. You can see here I've started to sew some on earlier. It's best to sew on a bit at a time, so I've just done half a skirt to start with. So now I'm going to carry on, finish the other half. Okay, I'm just As you can see earlier, I was pinning this on. I'm just gathering the very last one now, and I've gathered that 2 meters 20 into roughly from that seam, that's the join, to here about 38 centimeters. So I've tried to be quite uniform with it, and each section I've gathered 38 centimeters. I'm just going to tie the ends off here. So just take the bottom thread, which is your shorter one, and that should be the longer one, should be the one that you've pulled, and just tie it off. I do this about 3 times, and just cut it, making sure that's really tight. So I'm just finished pinning it on the net, lining it up with the marks I showed you earlier. Making sure you keep your petticoat flat as well. And then just finish off the end. Now I've finished pinning the other half on, I'm just going to take it back to the sewing machine and sew the rest on. So just need to sew over where you've put your gathering stitch. Okay, I've now sewn down the last bit of netting onto the petticoat. Okay, next we're going to work on the outer petticoat. Now, because of the shape they've done it with the scallops, this is going to be a little bit time consuming, but we're going to give it a go. It'll be done a similar way to my Anna Snow Gear dress skirt. So if you've watched the blue skirt tutorial for that, I've done this in a very similar way. So what to do is to get your skirt pattern. This is what I use, just half a circle skirt, and I think this next part's pretty self-explanatory. You need to cut out a wide strip to the same curve as your skirt. As you can see what I've done here. Because I only had so much fabric left over, I've had to cut out lots of separate strips. So as you can see here, I've used this template to cut out my strips. As you can see, this is approximately about 5 inches wide. You can make it a little bit wider if you want to. As you can see here, that we've then joined lots of strips together and started attaching it to the bottom of the skirt all the way around, like so. And the circumference of the bottom of my skirt was 7 meters, so that's a lot of skirt.
Next you need to draw your scallops around the edge of the skirt, and we found that a 9 centimeter diameter is just about right to make the scallops. We just conveniently had a mug that was the right dimensions, so drawing half circles all the way along the bottom, trying to keep it exactly the same distance for each one, and then sew following the line, and then when you get up to the top here, you turn the sewing and you do 2 stitches across, and then follow the line again to the next one, where you'll do 2 stitches across and so on until you've done all of the scallops.
Next you want to start cutting around your scallops as shown here, leaving nearly a centimetre allowance on the outside. And do that all the way around the skirt. Okay, the next thing to do once you've cut around is to clip into the curves to allow it to bend when you turn it inside out. And then cut up to the inside here, being very careful not to cut the stitching, as I say quite often in a lot of my videos. Must be very careful, and do that for all of them all the way around. Okay, next thing we need to do is turn inside out. A little bit of a pull there. I'm near the end now, so I've already made a start. Then what you'll need is, Mum invented this handy little device in the same sort of shape as the scallops. Just push it inside, because it's very fiddly trying to iron, although not impossible, just a lot more time consuming trying to do it by hand. So push this inside, making sure this liner doesn't roll forward to the outside. Just pull it a little bit, get your iron, just hold it, pulling it a little bit here, iron it flat. Then what I do is take it out, then you should have a nice edge there to put flat, and then I put a little bit of steam, and just iron the inside flat a bit. And just showing you what I did earlier, this is what it should end up looking like after on your outside.